It's a Sesame Street Live winning weekend on Old School and today's R&B 95.5. What up, doe? I always like saying, what up, doe? Just makes me sound hip, cool, and kind of ignorant, to be honest with you. Tony Scott, man. What? We've made our bid to keep the Rams. A proposal for a new stadium. It'll cost, on the high end, about $1 billion. $1 billion. To keep the Rams. It'll seat 64,000. It'll come with a 10,000 space parking lot. Now, see, therein lies the first problem. Okay, that's the thing, is that you can't have a 64,000 seat stadium and only 10,000 parking spot garage. You got to do better than that. I mean, you can't have 64,000 spots. I get that, but you got to get that up to 15, 20,000, man. Come on, man. 10,000, man. That's just it's going to be over there by the Arch, so it'll be downtown. Now understand something, that Stan Kroenke's already got, the owner of the Rams, he's already got plans to build a stadium in Los Angeles. Is this a last-ditch effort to keep the Rams here? Oh, yeah, it is. But here's the thing, the Edward Jones Dome is only 20 years old. And the Edward Jones Dome, if you don't know, isn't even paid off yet. The state of Missouri pays $12 million a year on the debt of the dome, the debt dome. So I don't know, man. Now, I understand it's not about keeping the Rams. It is, but it's not. You know what I'm saying? Because, I mean, they only play 8 games a year, but it's the business that other businesses are plugged into with the Rams. There are people who work in the Rams offices, maintenance, office people, all that. That's a year-round gig. And the businesses that benefit during the season, and then there's the Earth City employees, and then there's the companies that supply food and other supplies to the dome, the delivery people for that. That's all. So it's a whole big thing. But is it worth a $1 billion stadium to replace a 20-year-old stadium that we haven't paid off yet? I mean, what do you think? Love to hear your thoughts. 5566. What's the number over here? I'm getting ready to give you my phone number when I worked in Detroit. 314-969-0955. Eastside 618-399-0955. We got that coming up. I'd love to hear what you think about this stadium, man. Yes or no? If it's up to you, I mean, there's a lot of jobs, not just the Rams. There's a lot of things riding on this. What do you think? I think I got Kim coming up. The 5 stair steps deep in the crates. And R. Kelly. And we're going to do that. Let's call that in about 6 minutes. We'll do that. Thanks for making a big and right switch to Old School in today's R&B 95.5. Hi, 95.5.
Hey, Tony, I'm just listening to you on the air. First off, I'm glad to have you back.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And secondly, I was just curious about the comment you said about the stadium not being paid off.
Yeah.
Do you know when it's going to be paid off?
You know what? I have no idea when it's going to be paid off.
A new one?
I don't know when it's going to be paid off.
Oh, okay, because this is interesting. I mean, so far, based off the numbers you gave, it's like $240 million invested, and then they want to build a new one and still have more investments in the old one?
Yeah, haven't paid it
I'm
off.
Not for it.
So I put the decision on your desk, and you're saying
no.
All right, fair enough. Thanks so much.
You're welcome. Have
All
a great day.
Thank you. You too. Hi, 95.5.
Tony, the proposition for this $1 billion stadium is a bad idea.
Tell me why.
Well, you hit on some very valid points, the parking situation. But I think beyond that, I think if you look at the city of St. Louis, this really, culturally speaking, this really isn't a football town. And I say that because I've lived in some football towns, Now, albeit the towns that I lived in didn't have professional hockey teams, and most of them didn't have professional baseball teams, but this isn't the type of city that can support 3 professional franchises effectively and profitably, If you look at the seats that are going to, of that 64,000, how many of them are going to be of the premium variety? You know what I mean? I mean, out of reach of the average working Joe, And so basically you're going to be catering to a very elite audience. And those 10,000 parking spots, those are going to be going to the majority of that elite audience that's going to be seated in that stadium. So, it's just if you think about, okay, if you've got that kind of money, if you're willing to put up that kind of money in the city of St. Louis, put it into infrastructure, put it into schools, put it into revitalizing the downtown area. And then guess what? You'll attract enough business, you'll attract enough national interest to bring the city, to put the city back on the map, as opposed to just feeling like, we're teetering on the edge of of something really, really awful.
So what defines a football town, though? You said you lived in a few of them. What defines a football town?
I think it's the feeling that folks have. First of all, just walking around, visually speaking, all you see generally are monikers and logos that represent that team. And regardless of the record of the team, it's built into the fabric of the communities that support the team. And I lived in Washington, D.C. I lived in Jacksonville, Florida. I've lived in New York City.
So, but you're telling me that Jacksonville, Florida is a better football town than St. Louis?
Absolutely.
Really?
Absolutely.
Is that because that's the only pro franchise they have?
Possibly, but also a lot of the recruits, a lot of the players are actually from the Florida area. Mm-hmm. So it's like there's this whole support network for homegrown, so to speak.
Right.
But even beyond that, I think the fact that the way in Jacksonville in particular, if you recall, when they first stepped into the league, they were an anomaly with respect to expansion. I believe they made it all the way to the first round of the playoffs.
Yeah.
In there, and that was unheard of. So that just injected so much enthusiasm and so much hopefulness, into that town. And I'll tell you what, nothing unites a city like a winning sports team.
So bottom line is this, man. I put the decision on your desk, and you're going to say
no.